All right, well, today we're going to cover road rehab. And in front of me here, I have a project that I went through, and this project is under construction from what I understand. It should be completed soon, at least for the site portion of it. And here on this project, we had a road rehab as in a overlay and widening. So it was an overlay and widening project. I think, with this project, it was a good sampling. I'm really glad I got the opportunity to work on it. We did, like I said, overlay and widening, and over here we actually had an existing super we had to match into. So it was a bit of a challenge, but really with Civil 3D, you're going to see it wasn't that hard. I really don't know how I would do it in Land Desktop, but in Civil 3D it's fairly simple. So this is the existing road section here. On that existing road section, you can see here's the striping, and this is the outside edge of the shoulder. So the cyan lines are the edge of the shoulder lines, okay? So the travel lane actually stops, 2 foot outside of this this solid white line on either side of the road, okay? Then you have your double white line or double yellow line in the middle of the road, okay? And what we're doing with this project is we're taking this and we're going to widen this out a little bit. So let me load up my proposed XREF here. And you can see, with the site improvements, you're going to add a center turn lane and 2 site drives. Now, we're not going to add the site drives today. I'm not going to have time to complete this entire thing, although Civil 3D makes things quicker. It's not that I can do an entire, HOP design in 1 hour as I'm presenting it as well, trying to cover everything slow enough that everybody can pick up on the little clicks and picks. But, we're taking this shoulder on the north side and widening it out a couple feet, and this is all variable, and on the south side, the same thing. So everything in here, nothing is constant. It's all variable widening throughout. You can see, hopefully, the difference in, where we're pulling this shoulder out to, and, of course, the lane as well. So that presents a unique front of challenges there that we have to meet. To get started on any project like this, I did take some liberties of getting some things set up ahead of time. That is crucial. What I needed to do to get started here is set up a bunch of alignments. So I do have an existing surface in this drawing already, and I do have a series of alignments. Now, from right away down, don't worry about this. This is really the next class where we're going to actually have all the striping show up on our cross sections. And all this entrance stuff, entrance 1, entrance 2, don't worry about these as well. These are alignments for the drive entrances, so we're not handling that today. Really what I needed to set up is our center line for a road, the edges of overlay, and the edges of the shoulder, here and here. So it's center line, edge of overlay, edge of shoulder. That's all I really need. So to do an overlay and widening project, you're going to need, 5 alignments: center, the edge of the overlay, and the edge of the ultimate widening that you're going to do, okay? First, to get started here, you're going to have to create some profiles as well. So I have that center line of Hanover Road here. That's that main road coming down through the center here. And cut a profile of that, and I have 2 design profiles. One is the top of the leveling course, and another is the top of my overlay, okay? So really the top of the overlay, we're not going to use that today. So I'm going to turn that off. That's just for presentation purposes. The top of the leveling course is really what the design is based off of. And we're going to need that to adjust our center line profile height for our leveling surface that we need to create to put our overlay on top of. We're going to also need a top of leveling course surface for our left edge of overlay and our right edge of overlay. So that left edge of overlay alignment, turn my alignments on. So our center line's right down the center. Our left edge of overlay is right here, and our right edge of overlay is right here. They're right on top of the yellow line or the white line going down the side of the road. Because this is the section where we're just going to overlay the road in because it's already full depth. We're just going to add a 2-inch overlay, okay? And why do we need to do this, with these 3 profiles? So essentially we have a profile down the center of the road with elevation, and a profile down the left edge, and a profile down the right edge. Well, because in central Pennsylvania, at least for the district that this was submitted to, the way you do an overlay and widening is pretty specific. And what you get is a scenario that you need to adjust based on different design criteria. So if the existing road has a cross slope less than 2% on either side, like in this example here, so the existing road has a cross slope of 1% at any given location, but on this side it's at 3%. Well, what PennDOT requires you to do in District 8, at least, is we actually have to adjust that slope to a minimum of 2%. Okay? And this is critical to understand that I'd have to hold this outside edge, project up to the center line to make this 2% instead of 1% for our new design. And then this 3% we would hold the same. But since I held this edge and brought this up to the center line, I need to actually, do a leveling course, for the entire road width. So I actually need to bring this 3% up, parallel to the existing grade, just bring it up. This area inside here, this area all in here, this is all the leveling course they're going to have to put down, okay? So this is paved. They're going to go out and pave on top of the existing grade. And then the overlay actually goes on top of this. So our overlay would go here. All right. And then our widening would go, from this point out. Same thing over here. So this is crucial to understand that this is a design requirement in the example I'm about to show you. And it's a difficult one. How do we handle that? The reason we need to have 3 profiles is because I need to make a surface that is the top of this leveling course, so I can set my overlay and widening assembly on top of that. So with those 3 profiles, it gives me the ability to control, pick a different color, it gives me the ability to control this point, and this point on that surface. So I can make minor adjustments to achieve this minimum 2% grade and then raise up the right-hand side of the road, okay? If you don't need to do this, you wouldn't need to use the 3 profile example that I'm about to show. You can have there's a much easier way to do it using a different subassembly. I'll touch on that, but I'm not going to really show that today. If you understand this method that we're about to do, the using a different overlay assembly that just follows existing grade and it would just follow in percent, it just cuts out a bunch of time. It's easier. It's much easier. So I'm going to close this here. Let's go back to here. So that's why we have these 3 profiles again. So hopefully I've explained that well enough. We have the center, left edge, and right edge, okay? So like I said, what we need to do is make a top of leveling course surface. So I essentially am going to create this assembly here. Now I'm going to make it from scratch just so you can see what I'm doing. But that's the first assembly I need to make. One of the other things that's critical with corridor design, or really any design in Civil 3D, is you need to be organized. If you're not organized, you're going to get lost. And your assembly's not going to work, your cross-sections aren't going to look right, you're going to have instability problems. You need to be organized and neat. So what I'm doing is have a box over here. I'm going to put all my profiles in, all my assemblies in over here, and just keep track of things, and I'll show that as I go. To create an assembly, which an assembly is basically just your typical section, just go and click on Corridors Pull Down, and then Create Assembly. I'm going to name this assembly Leveling. pick a spot there, and what it does is as soon as you pick a spot, it sort of zooms you in. You can just zoom back. You don't have to stay at that zoom magnification, okay? So that's my assembly marker. And from that, this assembly marker is going to follow that center line alignment and profile elevation right here at the center of this assembly marker, okay? The next step I need to do is go into my tool palette, sometimes referred to this as the HRG palette, but come over into that palette and select Civil 3D-Imperial. And of course, if you're doing a metric job, you choose metric, but we're doing Imperial. And once that comes up, go down to the Imperial Generic Subassemblies list. Under the Imperial Generic Subassemblies list, we're going to use this link, width, and slope. Let's go ahead and click that. And then our AutoCAD Properties dialog is going to populate. So you have, if it's auto hide, you have to go up there and maximize it so you can see it. And what you can see is now I have some settings here. I'm in the, attach that subassembly to the assembly marker mode here. And I have some options in my AutoCAD Properties palette. So I'm going to do the left side first. And I'm going to do a width of 10 feet on the left. And I'm just going to say 0% for slope, okay? And my point code, I'm going to use OL for overlay, or LC for leveling course. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and attach this, and let's cover some of what the settings were. Well, the 0% slope means this line is going to come straight out. Let me lock this open here quick. Oops. Sorry. 0% slope means the line's just going to come straight out from the assembly marker. It doesn't really matter what slope you use in this scenario right now, because this is going to follow the profile of the center line, and this edge is going to follow the width and the profile of the left edge. Okay? The LC is the point code name. That's the name of this circle out here. This is the point code. So I just, instead of calling it P2 as it comes out of the box like that, I'm going to give it a name that makes sense to me, LC for leveling course. Now, if I hadn't hit enter and played around with opening my properties dialog box, all I would have needed to do is just switch it to right. But since I messed around with some things, I'm going to have to go ahead and click that again. And in here, I'm going to need to change the side now to right side. I'm going to do 0 again. Do LC. Okay? And you can really name this whatever you want. Keep the point code name simple, though. Don't, make a big, huge name with a bunch of spaces. Just keep it a couple letters, 3, 4, no spaces in it, and you'll be in good shape. So now, since I changed it to the right side, it's going to attach on the right side. Okay? So we're done with that. As always, I'm going to make a piece of M text. Check my style here quick. Make a piece of M text. Justify, middle center. And I'm going to take in that M text. I'm going to hit the Insert Field button. Change my field category to Object. Change the field name to Object. The object type, I'm going to click Select Object. Click the assembly marker. And hit Name. And now this piece of M text will pull out the name of my assembly, which I called leveling course. Why do I do this? Because now that name of that piece of M text is now dynamic to the name of my assembly here. So if I look up my assembly in the prospector, right here it is. Change it to Mark's leveling course. Just don't ever use your name in design, but you can see that if I do a regen, my end text automatically updates. Okay. Just do an undo and get that back. Okay. Get this on the appropriate layer here. All right. So now we're ready to go to do this top of leveling course surface. once I start messing with my corridor, I don't want to keep panning back and forth to show you things. Really what I'm going to do is type in my viewports command, and I already have set up a viewport that splits my screen into two. So now you can see on the top view is my road rehab plan view, and on the bottom view is my leveling course assembly. I'm going to go in and make a corridor model. So go into corridor pull down, hit create simple corridor or create corridor, doesn't really matter. They make the same thing, it's just the options you get up front. So create simple corridor is a little more streamlined. I'm going to call this leveling course. Okay. It says select baseline alignment. I can go ahead and just pick it. And then it says select profile. Well, I'd have to pan to do that, so I'm just going to hit enter. And then what I want to select here is my top of leveling course design surface. So I went through that profile and picked every 50 feet. So I'm going to use that design profile I made for this corridor. Hit OK. Then it says select assembly. Well, I can pick that right here. And then it asks me to set my targets. I'm just going to click OK at this screen, and we'll come back and cover that here in a second. All right, so you don't see anything, right, because we didn't set our targets yet. I do want to cover over one thing that I set on here, and I might have glossed over. To make this top of leveling course surface, when you're normally, I already designed this project, so I made the adjustments to everything. But what I would do is, start at your start of work. This would be where you're going to match into existing pave. This would be the 20 feet that you're going to transition from existing pave to the, your first leveling course interval. And then from here, I just picked on the grid every 50 feet because we show cross sections every 50 feet, right? No matter what, it's every 50 feet. So, or if you do every 25 feet. So really only at the cross section does it really matter. This interval in between here, we don't show that in design. The contractor just, transitions in between every 50 feet interval. So every 50 feet, I picked a point. Now, when I initially picked that point, I just picked right at the surface. And then as I needed to adjust the project, I just went in and grip edited and moved these up and down. Now, these all look like an even gap here, but it's not. That's all adjusted. You can see it starts to vary a little bit here, and here it's getting a little closer. So you have to do that, and that does take time, going down through and picking each one of those. And the same thing over here. But don't spend a lot, just get it in there, matching over top of your existing, same for the left and the right. That's pretty much the design part of this project, is going and making those adjustments. Well, you could have your cross sections done, and labeled, and then go in and make those minor adjustments, really even all the way at the end of the project. So you do have to do that. You got to go click those, but that's the design part where you're making those adjustments in your overlay and your leveling course. All right, so back to the corridor. That created a corridor. If I go into Prospector, you can see it here. And I need to make some adjustments to that and set some targets. So I'm going to right-click on that leveling course corridor, hit Properties. And we've covered these tabs in boot camp. Number of times, use this corridor for a new roadway, so hopefully some of this looks familiar. The Parameters tab is where everything's set up for the corridor, set the frequency and targets. This is, you can see, when I was going through to create this corridor initially, it asked me for the alignment, asked me for the profile, which I can change at any time, asked me for the assembly, can change that at any time. One thing I want to do is set my frequency for the entire baseline, which is only one region. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And I do want to turn off all the at horizontal geometry, at super elevation critical points, at profile geometry points, because I just want my sampling on this corridor to just be every 25 feet. No mid intervals or anything like that. And that's how, from what I understand, at least on this project, that's how we submitted to District 8, just every, I think it was every 50 feet, nothing in between. Hit OK. If you have different requirements there, you can go ahead and adjust those and adjust the interval and adjust where it's going to sample. Under targets, set the targets for this leveling course. In here, I don't have a surface that I need to set, but I do have left and right targets for those, those two wings coming out from the left and right side for my leveling course. So I'm going to go ahead and set the left one. How do I know it's left? Well, in the name here it says left. In the name here it says right. And since that edge of overlay is varying, it's not one consistent width from the center line, I do need to have an alignment and set these targets. I'm going to hit my target pull down. It's already set to alignment. I'm going to change this to edge overlay left, which I already made an alignment, named it something that made sense. You see where the organization comes into play. It has to be something that you understand. Hit add, hit OK. Do the same thing for the right. And I also need to add or target the profiles for the left and right overlay. I'm going to go to the left and then do my design, which was called design final edge left. Add that. Overlay right, design final edge right. In here, do take note that you can use, you don't have to target alignments and profiles. I could have made a feature line on the left and right edge and targeted that. It wouldn't have been as easy to adjust, I don't think. But you could just use a simple feature line, map it to, drape it onto existing grade, and then adjust each elevation point on the feature line. That's another way to do it. You can target that feature line for alignment and for profile. If you just need to target alignment, you could simply target a polyline. So Civil 3D 2009 is very versatile in that manner. And hit OK. And I'm going to actually go ahead and make a surface so you can see what happens after we set these targets. Right at this point, I could hit OK, and I basically have what I need. We can come and off this corridor, we can make a surface, right from the corridor. I'm going to go ahead and hit Create Surface under the Surfaces tab. I'm going to name this dash or underscore leveling course. Okay. The reason I use a dash is I like to, if it's a surface that I'm not really going to display for any plans sets, but I'm really using it to build off of for more information, I usually put an underscore under there to take it to the top of the list and keep it out of the way. I'm going to set this surface style to Ref 01. It's really not a finished grade. It's not an existing grade. It's just a reference surface. And the links, I'm going to add top links. So set link, set it to top, hit add, hit OK. And what you can see is I have this reference surface now that it essentially maps over existing grade. But for example, right at this contour between station 250 and 300, this cross slope of the road on the north side is less than 2%. So I had to hold the outside edge, bring up the center line, and then bring up the south edge accordingly. And what I can do now is I can use my profiles to accomplish that. So if I go to station 300 and say I go ahead and set my corridor to automatic rebuild, okay, I'm at station 300 here. If I grab this profile and slide it up, I'll adjust that top of leveling course surface. That was a little drastic, but you get the idea. So I can make adjustments now in my road slope, controlling the center, left, and right lane. Do a couple undos here, get that back. Okay. The problem I have here is that my corridor goes from the beginning of the alignment all the way to the end. I don't need that to happen for my leveling course, so I'm just going to go ahead and adjust my corridor so it doesn't go outside my overlay area. To do that, I'm going to right-click on the leveling course corridor again, hit Properties. I'm going to change my code set to HRG Assembly Design and hit OK. And why did I do that? Because now I can physically see the sampled cross-sections or sampled interval for this corridor all the way down. Now this grip is available to me. I can go ahead and grab that and drag it back, and my edge of the overlay stops right here, a little bit before station 100. Just going to snap it right to there. Same thing for the end. Okay. You can see it could even adjust. Since this follows existing grade, you can actually see it's starting to go into that super as well. It actually ends in a super elevated curve right here. Any questions on that so far? I don't see any coming up. Hopefully I'm explaining this well. All right, the next stage is to create our overlay and widening assembly. So it's essentially we're going to make this widening both sides assembly here. I'm going to go down to my corridor here, and I forgot to cover one thing. Before I create that next section, I can actually view my leveling course surface to see how it's looking there prior to going to the next step. To do that, I can come in down to corridor and hit View Edit Cross Sections. There I'm asked to pick the corridor and hit Enter for that. Pick my leveling course, and I can actually see now if I go through. I recommend having two views here, because if you have two views, you get this. It shows this white line what station you're at as you progress, and you can see my top of leveling course surface here. So you can see I needed to bring it up here a little bit, and then brought up the right side to match. What's great about this, and this is the big thing with Civil 3D that really takes it to the next level, is I can actually go and make adjustments. So I'm at station 200 right here. I can use my top view, browse over to station 200. I actually get a line on my profile. Isn't that crazy? So I get a white indicator line on my profile. I can zoom in here, grab this. Maybe I'll bring it up 0.2 of a foot, or 200ths really. And if you watch on my View Edit Corridor cross sections here, I'll make it something more dramatic. You can actually see it adjust as I'm editing my profile. So you can, grab two views here and edit as you go, and just go down through each section. What you want to do to get that back. Must have rebuilt a bunch of times there. There we go. Okay. Yeah, and you can make those adjustments on the fly. Another thing that you might want to do that I missed covering here was I actually set my right and left edge so that the stations match, so that station 200 is at the same horizontal location for my left offset and my right offset. So my centerline truly controls. How I did that is if I right click on these alignments on the outer edge, I go to Alignment Properties. I can go to Station Control, and I can set my station equivalency so that station 0 + 0, 0 on my right overlay alignment is equal to station 93. So at station 93, it's going to reset and start at 0, 0, which will, I had to do some math and look at the alignment, which will actually line up my stations all the way down. Now, since they vary, they become off as you go a little bit, very little, but it does line you up pretty good for making all your adjustments. So that I know at station 200, if I want to make an adjustment, I can go right here to my center line. That is the same station 200 right here on the left. That is the same station 200 right here on the right. That's pretty key for keeping stuff together. All right. So back to this overlay and winding assembly. Zoom to my two views here. All right, to make this overlay and winding assembly, I'm going to go under corridor again, create assembly, call this widening, both sides, hit OK, pick the marker location. For the widening assemblies, they're not in the overlay and widening assemblies are not in the palette by default. I don't know why they didn't include them, but they didn't. And these assemblies in the lists here that you see in these palettes are most of the assemblies, sub-assemblies available for Civil 3D design, but not all of them. The complete list is available if you go under corridors and subassembly catalog. This brings up like a little web page. So we're doing Imperial. And under here is a complete list. So keep that in mind for any assemblies or subassemblies that you're using. That there's if there's something you're looking for that you can't find in the palettes, look in here. It's probably in here. For road rehab, we're under this Imperial Road Rehab subassembly catalog, and you can see there's a whole bunch of road rehab assemblies. If you're doing median stuff, if you're doing broken back, both edges, doing overlay and widening in a super, in a design super. If you're just doing the simple, let me go back here to page 1. If you're just doing a simple overlay where you're not adjusting any road slopes, that whole leveling course bit that we went through with the 3 profiles can be skipped altogether, and you just use this mill overlay leveling 2, and it does your overlay for you, keeps a minimum depth, does a mill if you need it. You have to read the help on here. But this does a bunch of calculations for you, but it doesn't allow you to set a minimum slope. That's why we have to use the 3 profile method. But there's a bunch of stuff in here. To speed things along and make it easier for everybody else, I didn't drag all these into the palette. To drag these into the palette, you just use the water drop tool. When you click on the water drop, you wait for the little water drop to fill up. Then you bring it over to your palette and drop it into the palette. To speed things up for everybody, at least for the basic road rehab stuff that you need to use, went ahead and add those to the HRG palettes. So if I go to HRG palettes and go to HRG design, and you can see I added in here today some of the basic rehab stuff that I see us needed to use. Now there might be some additional things that you need. You're not going to be able to drag them into here from the list, but you will be able to drag them into your My palette, or you can actually drag them into the Civil 3D Imperial palettes because those are on your C drive because it came with the software when it was installed. So you won't be able to drag new content to the HRG palettes, but you will to any of the below, so you can put them anywhere you want. Right-clicking on the HRG palette and going to HRG design, you'll see these assemblies available for you. What we're going to use is this overlay widening match slope 1. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. You don't drag it, you click it. And this assembly is a little different than the rest for normal design assemblies, at least. There is no left-right option. So let's set some of these things. First thing I want to do is we're doing a 2-inch overlay, so 0.1667. And then this is the overlay part of the road. This is the widening part for the depths because the widening is the full depth. So 0.1667 there as well for the top. It's only going to be paved section, so I'm going to set pave 2 to 0, 4 inches of base, sub base, 6, 7, 8 inches of sub base, and we're good to go there. Our widening by default, we're going to assign it to an assembly or an alignment, so the widening is variable width as it goes. But we're going to set that just out of the box here, default to 6, so the picture on the screen looks sort of correct. And this is where it's a little confusing. There's 2 options here for sample point offset and insertion point offset. And I think, in my opinion, these are named backwards. But the insertion point offset, we're going to set to 12 feet. Okay? And I'll talk about that in a second. And leave my sample point offset to 0. I can go ahead and pick this assembly. Okay, and it puts my overlay and widening on the right-hand side by default. So how do I get it on the left side? To get it on the left side, I just put in negative in front of the 12 for negative 12 feet. And I go ahead and pick the assembly and marker again, and it does the left side. Okay? Believe you and me, that took us a long time to figure out that you have to do that. So the next thing you need to do after you put both sides in here is you need to look at the name of this left side assembly. So I'm going to right-click on it, hit Subassembly Properties, and you can still see the name says right. Well, I need to adjust that, or that's really going to confuse me. So just change the name to left. Since there's no left-right pick option, all the ones that are like that, there's a bunch of subassemblies that are like that, they'll always be named right. So you need to go adjust that every time. You only do it once here. It's not a big deal. Just hit OK, so now we're good to go. But if you don't adjust that, you're going to be messed up when you're trying to set your targets. So what are these sampling points that I'm talking about? Well, to get help on this file, I'm going to right-click on it in the palette here and hit Help. And they took care of the graphic for me. So the sample point is the center point of the overlay. The insertion point is the outer edge, as you can see. And what these 2 points set in the computer is the calculated slope. So I'm going to set this assembly on top of my leveling course, right? Now, why I think it's confusing is I would think the insertion point would be here and the sample point would be out here, but whatever. So I'm going to set this on top of my roadway. I could easily, if I don't need to worry about, adjusting slopes of my road like we do with this minimum 2% business, I could just set this right on existing grade. But then you're going to get with the existing grade, the slope as existing grade, your survey better be pretty good and accurate, and your triangles in your roadway need to be looked at and made sure they're right. But you could just set this right on existing grade, no problem. Notice you could even set it right on existing grade, put in 0 for your overlay depth, and you just get widening, no overlay. So the help really, the help really helps. So take a look at that. There's a lot more content down here. All right, so let's make another corridor. This is actually going to be the real corridor, the design one. This is sort of a temporary, this top of leveling course corridor. It's just sort of an intermediate design kind of corridor. So I don't want to add all this stuff into that corridor. I want to make a new separate one. So I'm going to go to corridors again, hit create and edit corridor section, create simple corridor. I'm going to call this Hanover Road. And maybe that's a bad name. When you're thinking about corridors, it's not like one corridor per alignment. You can have as many alignments or baselines in a corridor as you want. Quite frankly, there's not really much of a reason to have more than one corridor unless you're doing something like this where you're making temporary things versus design. So maybe we call this widening. And again, we're going to get the select your alignment. I'm just going to hit enter. It's going to be Centerline Hanover Road. Select the design profile. Now I'm going to use the top of overlay. And select assembly. I'm going to use my widening both sides. Okay. Get a list of targets here I can set. Since you know where to get to those, I can hit OK and just right-click on corridor properties and go back to this dialog. But here I can just set them right off the bat. It's asking for the existing surface. Well, we're not going to set it on existing because then we're going to get the slopes of the road that exist. We need to adjust those. We're going to set it on top of our leveling course surface. Okay. My widening, I have a couple targets here I need to set. My widening target is, how wide the full depth section will be on the ends on the left, north, and south side of the road. So I'm going to hit my right side here, and the alignment names I have for that are grade break left and right because I do have a shoulder I need to append to this, and I'll show you that in a minute. So grade break right, hit add, do my left side, grade break left, hit add. Okay. Now this sample point and insertion point, you see those again. So I can actually target those to an alignment and they can move in and out to sample slopes, just the way you want them. The only thing I need to set on these is I want to set my insertion point alignment. The sample is going to go down the center of the, since the offset slope that we typed in when we added the assembly was 0, my sample point is going to be right here at the center of the road. Since I have a nice wedge shape top of leveling course surface, it doesn't really matter where these are, quite frankly, because it's a nice wedge, perfect triangle. But if you're putting on an existing road, it might matter. So you might have to weave an alignment through the road to have it sample exactly where you want it to sample from. Usually, people will sample on the center of the road, and they sample at the saw cut line. So you might have to have an alignment on your saw cut line, which I have. So I'm going to set my insertion point left to overlay, edge of overlay left, and my insertion point right, edge of overlay right, hit OK, hit OK again, and bam, you get not only the corridor pulling through there, but it automatically hatched it for the overlay courses versus the widening section, and we're off to the races here. So we're getting something usable. Again, my corridor goes from the beginning of the alignment all the way to the end. So I do have some randomness happening here. I'm going to go ahead and drag that corridor baseline front. The edge of where we're widening on both sides is right here, so I'm going to go ahead and snap to that location. And then since I don't have this corridor set to automatic rebuild yet, you get sort of half line work, so go ahead and set that to automatic rebuild. Pulls that in. Same thing on the other side. And bring this side in. Now you can see my line work right here, it sort of juts out. Why is it doing that? Well, what we need to do there is, sometimes it's a little tricky, is the edge of where I'm widening on both sides of the road is at station, hold on a second, if I click on corridor properties here, is at station 12 plus 2780. I might just need to set this to 79. Just bring it 100 back in so I don't lose that sampling width. And there you go. It takes care of that. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Let me save this. And let's take a look at this with view and edit corridor cross sections. Go ahead, having this view current down here. So I'm panning around in this view. I'm going to go up to corridor again, view and edit corridor cross sections. It says pick my corridor, so I'm going to hit enter. This time I'm going to pick the widening. And there we are. So I can go up through the stations and see my overlaid and winding. Another thing I can do, if I want to see some labels on this thing, if I hit this drop down here where it says apply station ranges, I'm going to go to this edit and view options. And here I can change some colors of the grid and the text height and things like that. So I'm going to change this HRG assembly design. I'm going to change it to DM3 cross section with labels. Hit OK again. Now, since DM3 cross section labels are usually 5 scale pulled in that drawing, I do need to bring down my scale and set my annotative scale to 10. If I already had a 5 in there, that would be better. But I can go through and then I can see some labels. You can see I already have this designed in so that I maintain a minimum of 2%. And I can go through my cross sections and check it out. Of course, if I go and make an adjustment in any of those 3 profiles, that adjustment will either raise and lower the center, this edge, or this edge. You can actually see, hopefully on the screen, the brown line here. That brown line is the top of my leveling course surface. All right. So if I make that adjustment, it would automatically rebuild that corridor, which would automatically rebuild that top of leveling course surface, which would automatically rebuild my new widening corridor here. If I make adjustments in the alignments, of course, everything we've done so far is dynamic. The main point being that. And you can go through and make your adjustments, so on and so forth. Okay. Another thing you can see in here is what I did, and this is going to come into play in the next class. Is I actually had my right-of-way lines as alignments as well. So these red lines you see, this line over here and this line over here, I made it as a polyline, and then just turned that into an alignment. And that's going to service me twofold for the next class when I go into annotating and having your cross sections annotate automatically. Is that will help with annotation, but also in my view down here, I can see these alignments project onto that view now. Since they're aligned, since Civil 3D knows them as alignments, it projects alignments onto your cross-section view right here. And that is an awful nice thing when you're making design edits to your road, because you have to stay inside that alignment. So when you see projected slopes out, you can see from here, I need to pretty much come off this edge and project the grade. On this project, we add in a shoulder. Well, adding in that shoulder is going to push me outside this right away. So let's close off this class here with adding in that shoulder way. So I hit close my view edit cross sections window here. Change my annotated scale back to 50. You can see some things on the screen. And I need to add in the shoulder. So the shoulder width is from the edge of the widening here to this outer edge, which will line me up with our proposed design. Turn this surface off real quick. Turn my existing surface to no display. Okay. And my shoulder's at a steeper slope. My shoulder's going to be at 6% from this edge out, and that's why I called this alignment right here, called this grade break left, grade break right, because that's really where my grade break, you can call it start a shoulder, whatever you want. So to go ahead and add that shoulder, all I need to do is come down to my widening assembly here. I'm going to change my palette to Civil 3D Imperial again. Wait for it to take forever to switch palettes in this. By the way, if you're waiting for the palettes to switch like that, we submitted an Autodesk support request. They're working on that. Hopefully they'll get a resolution to it sooner than later. I'm going to use my shoulder vertical subbase and click that. AutoCAD Properties palette comes up. I'm going to do the right side first. My paved width is going to be 4 feet. Doesn't really matter because I'm going to assign it to an alignment because it varies in width. My outside shoulder slope for my super elevation. Going to keep that set to that. My slope, -6%, looks good. My unpaved length, this would be the grass part that's off my shoulder. There, my width, I'm going to set to a foot. 6% is fine. And then my shoulder paved section makeup. Let's change this to 0. And then we put, and you can change these at any time. You don't have to adjust these. You don't have to have these right when you first attach them. It's just, if you know them, you might as well. Do the right side. Okay. Since I haven't clicked off anything, all I need to do is switch this to left. Do the left side. Hit enter. Hit enter again. My corridor rebuilds because now that this assembly has those 2 pieces of data attached to it, it rebuilt. But you don't see the shoulder show up. Well, I have some targeting I need to do, so I'm going to go into Properties, my widening corridor, and click on Properties. Go under Targets, and you can see now I have some additional paved width alignment and paved width alignment here for 2 targets. Also, I have my daylighting. So the shoulder does have some daylighting, or it has some calculations it does that it needs to know what the surface is. That's why it didn't show up, because if you don't set these, it won't calculate it in. These actually need to set to my existing grade, not my leveling course. The reason there's 2 is because it's the left and the right. My paved width on the left, I'm going to click that. Have the edge of shoulder left, hit add there. Paved width alignment right. Edge of shoulder right. Hit OK. Sure I did those correct. Yep. Hit OK. Hit OK again. And now we have the shoulder. Okay. So you can see this as it builds out here. You can see the pieces falling together. One thing you might want to do is turn off the corridor for your leveling course. So I'm going to right-click on that corridor, the corridor properties. Under my code sets, I'm going to change this to no display. And hit OK. And additionally, how does it know to hatch the widening part, and how does it know to put a dot hatch for your overlay portion? Well, it knows that because of the code set. So I'm going to right-click on this corridor, which is basically the hatch patterns. Hit corridor properties there. And that code set is set to HRG plan. I can set this to HRG assembly design. Hit OK. And now you can actually see, going down through your corridor, the actual sampling points every 25 feet. This comes in very handy when you want to examine if something's a little goofy. You can then turn it up in the 3D view and see the entire corridor going down through. It's essentially the same thing as, when you hit view edit corridor sections, it rotates your view and puts you in line with the road. That's what view you're in. So you're physically looking down the corridor at each section here, or each sampling point. So any questions? That's pretty much what I wanted to cover here. Hopefully it wasn't too much of too much to grasp. You might have to look back at this video, but it is a little bit more complicated. If no questions, I'll just end off here with making a surface of this. So I'm going to right-click on the widening corridor, hit Properties, go to Surfaces. This is going to be my finished grade, FG, finished grade here, links. It's going to be my top link, which is the very top of the assemblies. Hit OK. And go back to plan view here. And you can see my proposed grade as it comes out into the super, and maybe this leveling course, I'll send that to no display.